All right.
All right.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome. A very exciting set of episodes coming your way. This is the first of 4 episodes that we are recording in collaboration with Vancouver Japanese Language School / Japanese Hall, along with the ExplorASIAN Festival in celebration of Asian History Month. Yeah. We're super honored to be participating.
Super honored.
In such an event. We've never been a part of anything like this before, and this is the first year that the Hafu It is a thing.
Totally.
So we're really excited to have even been asked to be part of something like this.
100%.
This is the 25th ExplorASIAN Festival, and we'll definitely put a link below so that you can read up a little bit on the history and the significance and its importance. Make sure that you tune in each Wednesday in May for a new episode with this program. Today, we are talking a little bit about our Issei, our first gen.
Yes.
And what that means. And because we are recording this episode in downtown Vancouver in Gastown at VJLS, this beautiful tatami room.
We're in the tatami room,
we'll
top floor.
A bunch of montages here and there.
Yes.
We are going to just really respectfully acknowledge that we are recording these episodes on the unceded traditional lands, including the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. Thank you for having us on your land.
Yeah.
We really look forward to participating.
So before we get into our specific Issei, I'm just going to go over a quick little intro into Japanese immigration in general, just for anyone who doesn't have a vast amount of knowledge on our early ancestors and our early immigration into North America. So basically, when did it happen? When did we start immigrating? So in the early 20th century in Japan, there was not a lot of opportunity for young men and young families, especially in rural areas of Japan. In 1868, Japan became imperialized. They were, I believe, the first country outside of Europe to become imperialized, and a lot of Japanese people weren't down. So I think that kind of sparked the first initial, let's just move away and go start a new life somewhere else. So in rural areas, there was no chance if you were lower class or poor to climb up the ladder. You were just kind of always going to be poor. There were super high taxes, super high rent costs, so there was just no way that that was going to happen for you. A lot of the people would then travel to the big city where there's more opportunity, but there wouldn't be, and they would still be in the same situation that they were in previously, so it just wasn't working out for them. So they were like, you know what, let's be adventurous, let's go and immigrate to a different country and start a new life in North America. So it was kind of like the late 1870s. I have seen a specific date as 1877, but I think it's just kind of generalized into the late 1870s. How did these people immigrate to North America? So obviously at the beginning of the 20th century, there weren't planes, so everyone traveled by boat. So all of our early ancestors all came to Canada and North America in general on boat. And who were these people? So a lot of them were young men, young unmarried men. A lot of them were teenagers. Some were of like peasant class, but there were also lots of like wealthy, super educated Japanese men that came to North America as well. But for the most part, it was usually disenfranchised people looking to start a new life and build a life for them in the land of opportunity, And at the time, there was a lot of anti-Asian, specifically anti-Japanese racism. So even though that was a very strong presence in BC, they were still able to create great lives for themselves, own businesses, own properties, flourish. So it's a real testament to the strength of our community that we were able to just pick up as teenagers, travel to a different country and build a life for ourselves in a country that doesn't want us there.
Especially when we were barred by law from working like
any sort of
higher end jobs. You were only allowed to work a labor job.
100%.
So loggers, fishermen,
you
gardeners,
did the work
cleaners,
that white people didn't want to do.
Yeah, or you could like be a merchant. You could like run a business, and you know that's what our people did. We really like overrun this whole area in the Powell Street,
yeah, the Japanese
area.
businesses, mama.
Yeah, lots of success, and I think that led to the Asian riots of Vancouver in 1907. Lots of crazy pictures from that. I actually didn't know that was a thing until we were doing
like
research
lots
for
of
this
Japanese
episode.
businesses being destroyed and stuff like that, vandalized. Yeah, we love seeing it.
Yeah, lots of it felt like a threat to the economy is the way that I believe it was documented when I was doing this.
Right, instead of helping the economy.
Yeah.
But
totally,
anyways. So that's a little brief intro into our early Japanese immigrants, and now we're going to get into our specifics.
That's right. So for anyone who's like not really new to this podcast, you kind of already know this, but for all of our new listeners, welcome to Daima, you know, because the Hafu It is your home. Welcome. You're going to get to learn a lot about us today. So there are various generations of Japanese Canadians. Yeah. Sakura has some interesting tidbits on kind of how that varies between Canada and the United States. But generally here in Canada, we have the Issei, Nisei, Sansei, Yonsei, and Gosei. Yeah. Where the Issei here in Canada, I believe, refers to the first generation of people to be born in Canada.
Like nationalized.
Yeah, like nationalized instead of naturalized.
Yes. Which, when I kind of like looked into it, in the States, apparently they consider their first generation to be the first generation that became citizens and not necessarily the first generation that's actually born in the country. Here in Canada, we definitely go by your first generation is the first generation that was born in Canada as Japanese Canadians and not immigrants. Not the first.
Yeah, totally.
The
Which
first
can
to
be
come and
super
immigrate.
confusing.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So what generation are you?
I am fourth generation. We're known as the
here we go.
Yonsei.
Oh.
Because, you know.
Here we go.
Leader Queen.
Yes.
Here we go.
I love that.
Yonsei.
Fourth gen.
What generation are you?
Oh my God. I am third gen.
Third gen. She is Sansei.
She is Sansei.
Sansei.
Yeah. When I was little, it sounded like Sensei. I was always so confused. But yeah, Sansei.
Sansei. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I'm third generation born. If people are still confused at what that means, my great-grandparents immigrated. My grandparents were the first born in Canada. My father was the second born in Canada, and I am the third.
Yeah. And for me, it was my great-great-grandparents immigrated here.
Yes.
My great-grandparents were born here. My grandmother is the firstborn. Sorry, second-born.
Second-born.
My dad is the third-born, and I'm the fourth.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
That makes me Yonsei.
Yonsei.
Here we go.
Here we go.
So we're talking a little bit about our first generation, kind of what we know, who they are to us, and kind of what we've learned from them, what they've managed to pass on for us.
Totally. Yeah. So my first gen, my grandma and my grandpa. My grandpa's side of the family, to my knowledge, came from the Fukui prefecture on Honshu in Japan. My grandmother's side of the family, from what I'm aware of, came from the west coast of Honshu. But again, yeah, I'm not quite sure because there's no actual documentation of that. Yeah. And my grandmother definitely never had that conversation with me. But yeah, so that's where I think they came from.
Wonderful. Well, we are doing a bit of an exploration into both of our families' histories later on in the series.
So
we're
going to find out.
Tuned,
yes.
where we'll learn probably a little bit more about Sakura's family. Spicy.
Excited.
Yeah, my first gen, my family's Issei were my great-grandparents. So I just call them grandma and grandpa because that's what my dad always called them because they were his grandma and grandpa. Or Oji-san and Oba-san. So it was them for me. I was actually quite close to them. I'm not sure if that's like a cultural thing. I don't know if that's just like a Japanese thing where you're just very close to your elders. I think it just it means something different.
Yeah.
To have relationships with your elders. And
different, I think different cultures have different relationships with their elders, but definitely for us, they're held in a very, very high regard.
Yeah, which was always like the idea that I got growing up with my great grandparents, but they like practically raised my dad. So he was always very close to them. So it was just inherent that I also be very close with them. It's a bit of a difficult concept to explain to our non-Japanese friends or our friends who don't have that culturally in their heritage, who didn't grow up with that. Especially when I was like mourning my great-grandparents and people are like, okay, but they're your great-grandparents. And you're like, okay, anyway, let's move on.
Oh my God.
I was very, very lucky to have known them at all. A lot of people don't get to know their great-grandparents or their Issei at all. I was really lucky to not only have known them through my childhood years, but to have gotten to know them in my early adulthood. Heard lots of stories from them, varied over time, definitely more so towards the end of their lives. Yeah. When I think our elders become a lot more comfortable sharing information later in their lives, at least those of us who are lucky enough have elders who are more comfortable later. So I was one of those people. My Oji-san opened up to me when I was really young and like didn't really understand what he was saying, but he like used to tell me stories about his brothers and sisters and how they used to play like in the river growing up in the little village that he lived in Japan. So that was kind of my like early understanding of my grandparents, and they were both very like reserved to growing up. You always had to, very formal, always had to ask permission to open the fridge and take something out of it. But they always had like pops and stuff like that in there for us, for the kids. But we always had to ask, Oji-san.
Of course.
Grandma and Grandpa, can I take a pop?
Yeah.
They'd always say yes.
Hell yeah.
So lots of good manners there. My Oji-san always was responsible for making the green tea in the family, which funny enough was always Chinese green tea. It was never Japanese green tea. Yeah. Maybe it was just what they could afford or whatever, but that's always like a really warm memory for me, is that was like his one job, and then my grandmother, my Oba-san, would do the cooking or ordering food or whatever she was doing, and so that was really fun. So I was really, really close with them. My great grandmother shared with me a lot of stories, and a lot of what I know about my family, or the information that I used in order to find more information about my family, came from discussions with my Oba-san later in her life, where I actually made a documentary a bunch of years ago called Aiko that streamed with Yahoo Japan. And I used what I learned back then to learn a lot more about my family, which we'll talk about in next week's episode for y'all. A homemade pilgrimage.
Yes.
My Oba-san taught me how to knit. She taught me how to make sushi. Yeah. The recipe that I use is still hers. She always wanted me to make her sushi, but I didn't get a chance to. Right. Before she passed, but she was the one who gave me her recipe and kind of showed me how to do it, and we like made it together. So she was always looking forward to having sushi that I made on my own. Yes. And we will someday. Yes. When we meet again. They taught me about mochi, gardening. My Oji-san was like a major gardener. Love that. Which makes a lot of sense now, what I know about our history here in Canada and kind of what we did and love to do. And a lot of the other kind of traditions that we'll talk about in this episode come from, or later in this series, come from them. Totally. So I'm very thankful to have had a relationship at all with them. Yeah. Because
I think that's where you and me differ. my great-grandparents were dead long before I was born, and my grandfather, Tamasu, passed away when my dad was a kid. So I only ever had my grandma, and she lived in Lethbridge, Alberta, and me and my family live here on the West Coast. So unfortunately, I didn't have a lot of time with my grandmother. When she did end up coming and living with us, it was closer to kind of the end of her life, and unfortunately, she was dealing with some health issues, so we weren't able to have like conversations like that. So in terms of like Kiyoko learning how to make sushi and like stuff like that, I never got that opportunity, unfortunately. But one thing I do remember with my grandmother is just before we had to move her into a home, she was living in her own home here on the West Coast, and she would have us over for dinner, and she would make us traditional Japanese food. And I always remember there was just something so special about it, because I obviously eat Japanese food all the time, but having her make the food in her kitchen, it was just such a wonderful experience, and that's something that I never forget, and I still always think back to the things that she would make. She would make homemade tempura, sushi, like katsu, like just tons of delicious stuff. Her desserts were absolutely amazing. Japan and Japanese people are very well known for making tasty treats. So yeah, that was always something that was very special to me. Did I learn any of her cooking skills? No, unfortunately not, but that was something that was very, very special to me. Also having like a set of like indoor shoes. So when you like come, when obviously in Japanese culture, you don't wear your shoes inside of the house. So the second you step into the house, sometimes even outside of the house, you take off your outdoor shoes and you're either barefoot inside, or you have special types of socks, or you have indoor shoes. So I always remember my grandma taking the time to change into her indoor shoes, and I just thought I loved that so much. And it's so confusing for me when I see people from other cultures wearing their shoes inside, because it's such a cultural, it's such a cultural difference for me to see that, because I grew up knowing that you had to take off your shoes. And if you needed to wear shoes indoors, you had to wear a clean pair of shoes that were only ever worn indoors. And yeah, so just little kind of things like that are what I remember about my grandma. I really wish that I had had more time with my grandma. I was very close with her. Loved her and still love her so much. It was very hard when she passed. But I'm so thankful for the time that I had with her. And even just seeing her be a strong Japanese woman who had to work like 3 jobs to support her 2 children as a single mother, dealing with the racism that she had to deal with, like kind of all that stuff, just her being alive and being so happy and so full of life and so loving and caring. It's just, she's definitely one of like my biggest heroes, I think.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting. You're talking about having the indoor shoes. I think I like somehow just unearthed a memory
I love
of doing that. I don't think they like carried on with that like as I got older, but I think I do. Like they always wore like indoor shoes, but I don't think like, I think for a very short amount of time they like sometimes would have me wear. They always had like extra slippers. Yes. Like when you came into my grandparents' place, we always used the side door. Yeah. To their house. Never the front door. Never the front door. I wonder, that's so funny. I've never like thought about that before. Yeah, their front door to me was always their side door. Right. Probably to avoid as much mess as possible. And then when you step in, there's like the stairs to the basement and the stairs to like the main floor. So it's like an intermittent little platform. Yeah. And then alongside of the stairs that go down into the basement, which was where my my Obasan's older sister used to live, there was like a set of like sliding like storage areas, and always like with shoes. So we always like sat down on the stairs, took off our shoes nicely.
Yes.
We weren't allowed to leave our shoes
all messy,
like a mess all on the ground. Yeah, always had to like tuck them up
put
into
them in
the
a
thing.
pair, nice
and
and
then there
clean,
would be
neat
the
up
indoor
against the
shoes
wall.
in there, and you would take them out and put them on.
Yeah.
Hilarious. I've literally completely forgotten about that.
She always had these like pure white little like canvas like tie up almost like keds.
Oh my
Like,
God. I think it was just slippers for us.
Yeah.
That's really funny. I really haven't thought about that in a very long time.
Yeah.
But again, this is kind of like one of the like foundations of mine and Sakura's relationship. For those of you who haven't listened to our first episode and kind of know how we met, I had just like before Sakura, I'd never met someone someone else in the Japanese Canadian community outside of my family, really, and like my cousins. So when we started like sharing stories and talking about like our lives, Sakura would say things that like really like resonated with me in a way that like echoed, because it was like it like opened doors to memories that I just like had tucked away because they were so unrelatable to everyone that I knew growing up.
Right. Yeah.
So that's like another moment. I don't think I've like shared a memory like that with anyone before.
It's so, it just forms such a strong community when you share your stories, because you realize that there are so many, so much in common with so many Japanese Canadians in the terms of like our stories and like what our families had to do to survive here and our traditions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You feel so isolated as a Japanese Canadian when you aren't like fully immersed into your community. So if you live in the middle of nowhere and there's no other Japanese people in your community, you just feel like such an alien. So to then hear stories of people who you've never met before, you're not related to, but have had these like similar profound experiences to you, you just don't feel so alone anymore.
I think that's a good way to put it, is to call those experiences profound, because when like up until you meet someone else who's part of your community and you're sharing your stories like that, those memories really do feel very profound and very specific to you, something that no one else understands
Right.
or gets. Because I like I have so many memories of my great-grandparents that I just, besides like my dad, never really talked to anyone about.
Right, yeah.
Because no one else had the same type of relationship with their grandparents, let alone their great-grandparents, that I did. So I, like as a kid, didn't really talk about like my grandparents with my friends,
Right.
unless like I had a select few who got a chance to meet them. When I was like younger, they used to come with me when I'd go, because we used to go every Sunday was to go see grandma and grandpa.
yeah.
My dad would come and pick me up and bring me over there. So I saw them a lot. Yeah, I wasn't really like part of the Japanese Canadian community growing up. Unfortunately, I obviously, like now that I'm in my 20s, my mid 20s, I'm, starting to immerse myself a lot more and starting to kind of understand a lot more about my place in this community, by learning through other people who have the exact same profound experiences and memories as I do. And it's been like a really life-changing experience. I was talking to my dad about that actually recently, and he said that he would like wished that when he was younger, because they used to bring him to like the Japanese cultural center activities in
Right.
Toronto all the time.
Right.
Like they used to attend like so many events and stuff. It just kind of got dropped when I was younger, because my dad didn't, to an extent, didn't want to be Japanese growing up, because there's like a lot of like racism.
Yes,
and,
internalized shame.
internalized shame, yeah, and like also like passed down shame and
Totally.
just no
Assimilation
a lack
was
of
definitely
pride,
the
that obviously he's gotten over since being a kid, but he expressed like a regret for not appreciating more like what all of that meant, because
Right.
all of that, like bringing my dad to those events, was like my great-grandparents attempting to pass on some Japanese culture to him, and it obviously has. My dad's like, more and more like into his Japanese culture and Japanese side, which is
Right.
why I'm so into my Japanese side.
Yeah.
It was always very like enforced onto me growing up.
Yeah.
Which I'm really thankful for. It kind of sucks that we weren't like involved enough in the Japanese Canadian community in Toronto when I was growing up. Like I never went to any of those events.
Right.
The closest I think that we really like got any involvement with was when we would go to like Japantown and get like mochi
Yeah.
and senbei and all that. And bring it back, or the memories of picking up sushi from my grandmother from J-Town in Toronto. But I never really got that. I got like a couple language lessons from the Japanese school in Toronto,
Okay. Yeah.
but I stopped being able to go pretty early on.
Right.
So I remember being able to go like once or twice and then stopping that entirely. So that was kind of as close as I really got to being introduced into the community. But it happened so naturally moving out to Vancouver,
Yeah.
becoming involved in the community.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm trying to remember like how that really happened. I think like once you really are conscious about it,
Yeah.
you're consciously like thinking, I want to be more involved in my community, those doors just open really naturally for you suddenly. Because not only do your phones listen to you, but like, if you just Google like Japanese Canadian events, suddenly all these different organizations and institutions are will show up for you.
Totally.
Like when I started doing research for my documentary that's ongoing called Finding Happiness, I went and talked to Papa Hapa.
Oh my God.
Our savior, our Lord and Savior.
Yeah. We
Jeff
love
Chiba
Papa
Stearns over tea at a JJ Bean on Commercial Drive. And that like opened up a lot of like avenues for me to become more involved and learn a lot more.
No doubt.
Specifically, like, and I'll talk about this in every single episode of this series, I feel like, but the Japanese Canadians Facebook group is really where it's at.
Yeah.
I really only have Facebook anymore for the Japanese Canadians Facebook group. I feel like I've really found like a community on there. You start to recognize names from people who post more often. You start to recognize like names and just like types of content that some people put up.
Right.
And it's really, really incredible to see everyone else be so equally proud
Yes.
of being Japanese Canadian, especially because I think you're my only Japanese Canadian friend.
Yeah.
Like that I know like in my everyday life.
Yes.
At least, you know, like I've
Ditto.
since then, like a couple years ago, have been to a couple Japanese Canadian events, and it's funny too how when you go to those events, it's so natural to communicate with people.
The first time I went to the PAL Street Festival, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be so out of place, like it's gonna be so awkward. The second I got there, I was like, oh, like these are my people. Like this is just like so normal, second nature. Like I have such social anxiety, but anytime I go to any sort of Japanese event, Japanese market, Japanese holiday festival, anything like that, it's just like so relaxing.
Yeah.
So relaxing.
Yeah, I have the exact same experience with it. It's just and especially being like mixed race, because we are mixed Japanese Canadians. Because I like always had imposter syndrome in regards to like my identity.
Do I belong here?
Yeah,
Should I be
I'm not
here?
Japanese enough really to like go to the Japanese market or Powell Street Festival or anything like that.
Right.
But even just going in 2019, I went to the Christmas market, the Japanese Christmas market. I like skipped work.
Yes.
And went down and
Gorgeous.
just like looking through the merchants like engage you and talk to you about just how you are.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, like, are you mixed? Like, you're mixed. Oh, me too. Like,
Totally.
oh, my mom runs this station. And it's just so much acceptance. And I don't think realize until I started wanting to become more involved how much I needed that acceptance.
Right.
On just my lifelong identity crisis.
Yeah.
But it was like a really, I'll never forget how that felt.
Right.
To just like finally connect with people who I really felt like I finally belonged somewhere.
Yeah.
Even though I had always told myself that I didn't.
Right.
Not enough, because I'm quarter Japanese, right? So it's one thing to be like half Japanese, but when you're like, when you're a fraction at all, like of anything, it's just like the less that you are, the more, I think, like the worse your imposter syndrome gets.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm of the mentality that like regardless, it doesn't matter. You're still Japanese.
And it shouldn't. Like it's in your genealogy. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's not up to anyone else to identify for you
who you are or what you are. Yeah. And I think that's like somewhere like I kind of had to become comfortable with that kind of idea. Because I'm half Japanese, but as I'm told by almost everyone I come into contact with, I look apparently very Caucasian, which I don't agree with, but I hear that all the time. And I hear it from like mixed race Japanese people, I hear it from Japanese people, I hear it from white people, I hear it from all different cultures. So that always really upset me because I felt like my culture was being taken from me, and my experiences with like racism and stuff like that were just being like wiped clean. But then I just kind of got to a place where I was like, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. I am Japanese, my family is Japanese, this is my culture, I do belong here, whether or not you agree with that. And I think that's good in some cases. You always want to be like respectful of like people's spaces and stuff like that. But yeah, I've gotten to a point in my life where I don't care whether or not you think I look Japanese or whether or not you think I'm Japanese enough. I am, and I'm going to be here. So get used to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I can identify with that on like a major scale level.
I even had like a guy came in who was Hafu to where I work, and I noticed that his last name was Japanese, and I could just instantly tell that he was Hafu, because when you're Hafu, you can just, spot other Hafu super easily. And he was very shocked that I was Hafu and made the comment that I look Caucasian. And I just had to correct him, like, no. And he was like, oh, no? I was like, nope, absolutely not.
You're like, no, I don't look more Caucasian.
Nope, I look exactly what I am. I don't look like a white person, but thank you for your opinion. Have a lovely day.
Yeah, lots of like education
needs to happen.
To mixed race.
Yes.
Need to occur. Yeah, it's interesting to see that even like within our own Hafu community.
Yeah.
Being mixed.
And it's so interesting because you just mentioned that you're a quarter, but when I met you, I was like, you look so much more Japanese than I do.
Your radar went off and you were like, I can smell the Asian.
I showed a picture of Kiyoko to my parents. They were like, she's only a quarter. They thought you were like essentially full Japanese.
Which is also like wild because you like, I couldn't even believe, because Sakura told me this story about this Hafu person who she was talking to the other day, and I was like, you in no way look like Caucasian.
No.
Like at all.
Like
here's our face.
I don't get it.
So it's yeah. Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show like a lot of, like, they obviously haven't gotten to that point in their identity exploration yet. Maybe like 5 years ago, I probably would have I would never have said that to someone.
Right.
But like I would have like thought that about myself too. Like if someone had said that to me, I would have been like, yeah, like you're probably right.
Right.
Because I've never, I don't know. Who am I to tell someone who looks a lot more Asian than I do.
Oh my God.
That they're wrong.
Yeah.
Because they must know.
But that's not just something specific to the Hafu community. All mixed race people experience the exact same thing.
Yeah.
People from your community and outside of your community telling you you're not what you are because you don't look like it to them.
Yeah. And we're like, thank you for your opinion.
Thanks for your unsolicited opinion.
Yeah, you're wrong.
You're very wrong.
But
okay.
Yeah, everyone's entitled to their opinions. So I guess
Yeah.
it's the way that it is. But
Oh my
a lot of all of those like respects for traditions get lost through like generations, right? Because a lot of elders in our community are obviously still in pain over a lot of their experiences growing up.
Definitely.
Like, I know that my Nana, my dad's mom, still like is, I think, even like just starting to become more interested again in the fact that we're Japanese. Probably because I have been so actively interested. My family is like struck at how interested I am that we were Japanese.
And that's the third generations, the fourth, the fifth. Like that's what we're all about.
That's like where it's all coming out.
That's
again.
What we do.
We're the
That's
renegade drivers. Here we go.
Yes.
Yonsei, Sensei, Gosei. Here we go. It's our time to shine. But a lot of our elders are obviously still like stuck in a place of pain and anger.
Yeah.
And a lot of that translates into the way that information and history is transferred over to different generations. And so I think it's only natural for our generations to start out at the very least being.
Yeah. It must be like one of the things that is probably adding to your elders being so open now at this point of time to discuss it is probably seeing how proud you are to be Japanese, because they come from a generation where anti-Asian racism, again, it's still here, but it was just so in your face before that you were just constantly, especially when you were born here, you're just constantly told from day one that you're less than because you're Japanese. So obviously you would like be a self-hating Asian, a self-hating Japanese. So for them to see a younger generation, you being so proud to be Japanese, so wanting to learn your history, so wanting to learn your culture, that must just be so like the contrast between the generations. Because even my dad's generation and my generation, I ask so many more questions. I'm so much more involved in my community because I was raised with less shame in being Japanese, where my dad was like aggressively shamed for being Japanese. So it must be so cool for elders to see such interest in our culture coming from the younger generations, because you would think you're so many generations Canadian now, you're just Canadian, you're more interested in being a North American. Well,
they worked so hard towards like assimilation too, right?
That was the goal.
That was the goal.
That was the goal, to marry a white person.
We thought that you guys would all be super happy to that we had assimilated so hard.
We tried to make you as Canadian as possible, and now we're like,
We're like,
we're headed back to Japan, mama.
My Oba-san was like, I don't understand why you're so interested in all of this, but I guess I'll answer for this. I think near the end of her life, she told me that she was proud of me for asking questions. Try not to. For asking questions that she wishes that she had asked her parents.
Yeah, totally.
Because I don't even know what it was that I asked her. I was just like, I was asking her about her maiden name, or her mom's maiden name, because obviously she comes from the Nishimura side. And she was like, and I was asking her questions about my Oji-san. I was like, she was like, I wish that I had asked him these questions.
Right.
She was like, I wish that I had thought to ask him these questions, because they were married for 70 years.
Oh shit.
They were married for
70?
More than half of their lives.
Okay.
Because she got married when she was like 20, like right after the war.
Mama,
it was
over
super
half
fast.
a century.
Yeah, over half a century.
Mama.
They almost made it to a century together.
That's wild.
More than 70 years of marriage, and she was like, and somehow there are still things that I didn't know about him.
Right.
Or still things that she doesn't know about her own parents.
Right.
Because it was instilled in her so early in her life to
not ask those questions.
To not ask those questions. And it's just the Japanese way to not ask your elders those questions, right? That's always what my dad said to me. It was like, you don't ask your elders those, you don't ask family those questions.
Yes, that's not talked about.
No. You know, and she told me for like a long time, she said to her mother that she like, oh, why did you make me born a Japanese, right? Like after the war and stuff like that. So it was like about a year of hearing her be like, I just don't understand. Like,
where is this coming
why
from?
Are you so like, why are you so interested in all of this? To being like, you're doing work that I wish that I had done.
Yeah.
And I wish that I had these answers for you.
Right.
And I think we had that conversation, and then she died, and then I found like a lot of extra information.
Right.
I have yet to pursue information further on like the Nishimura side than what I already know, which we'll go over in the next episode of this podcast, of this series. I think it's interesting that you have put it in a way that's like, perhaps it's because we are showing such active interest in our community that they're finally willing to share their stories.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Like through talking to both of them, I learned things like, information that's very difficult to like access, finding like our history, like knowing the town that my family comes from in Japan and the island that they come from and where they settled in Vancouver, on Vancouver Island, and how the other side of the family, very vague details, but because now I'm so experienced in doing that research, I can go back now and I can find that tale of the family tree and build on it. So yeah, I'm really thankful that my family's Issei, decided later on in life that life was too short to keep those stories to themselves.
Yeah.
I think I said during her obituary, her eulogy that I wrote for her funeral, was just that someone once said that stories are shared in safe places.
Right.
And I think that we're finally at a time in our community's history where we can be that for them. We can be the safe place that they entrust their stories to, so that we can hopefully inspire a better future for all of them and for our future generations. Mm-hmm. Which we'll also get to talk about later in this series.
Totally.
There's such like a loss of information from all of that, and especially because there are so many like generations before ours that followed the rule of shikata ga nai, like it's happened and it's over. It's really important that we're going out there and talking to our Isseis if they're still alive, because obviously we're losing elders left, right, and center in the JC community, which makes sense. It's been a while.
Totally.
It's been almost 100 years. It's been more than 100 years for a lot of us.
Right. Out of like my siblings, I'm definitely the one. I have an older sister and a younger brother. I'm definitely the most immersed in my my heritage, especially growing up. Anything that could possibly be available to me in the tiny community that I grew up in, that was a part of my culture, I would just like beg my parents to let me do. So I grew up practicing karate, and I also did taiko drumming for a very long time. The taiko drumming was held at the Buddhist temple in the city that I grew up in. And I never had a conversation with my dad about how he felt about me being so interested in my Japanese culture and wanting to do so many things from our culture. But I'd like to think that he was very proud to see one of his kids be like, hell yeah, I'm Japanese and I want to do anything Japanese that I possibly can.
I see you, Papa Yoshida. I know that you're proud. Yeah, totally.
And now as like an adult, my brother is like Japanese the house down. Like he's all about our culture, where my older sister is not so much about our culture. But she's from a little bit of a different generation than me, where you were still very much trying to assimilate into Canadian society, where me and my brother are a little bit younger and we're a little bit more strong-willed, if you will.
That's a good way
and we're
to
like,
put it.
hell no. Like, yeah, so my sister doesn't use her Japanese name. I legally changed my name from a Caucasian name to my Japanese name. And with my brother, I now only refer to him as his Japanese name, so...
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's so funny. Kiyoko obviously has a Caucasian name as well. I asked her when we first met. I asked her when she first met. I was like, can I just use your Japanese name and not use your Caucasian name? And she was like, of course. Like, yeah, for sure.
And I'm really thankful that I got a Japanese name, because a lot of the generations after the Issei and Nisei didn't get one. Like, my dad doesn't have a Japanese name.
Right.
But he made sure that I did.
Yes.
And I remember my dad told me that my great-grandparents were like very Japanese about it, and they were just like very proud, but very just like
silently, like yes.
A
quiet nod,
like the nodding
a gentle
of the
nod,
head.
yes, of approval.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that I have that, because obviously when I went to Japan, met my family there, which we'll talk about again in the next episode. It was nice to be able to introduce them to a name that would be easy enough for them to say and to write out. And it's also nice because when we started communicating with the Vancouver Japanese Language School, I was able to introduce myself as Kiyoko Sugimoto. I didn't have to give them my Caucasian name, even though that's what comes up in my email, because I made it obviously like many years ago. It's really important. We'll talk about the importance of keeping family names and stuff later in the series as well. Then on the topic of like loss of information, the next episode is really going to touch in a lot more detail on finding records for families.
It's going to be a heavy episode.
It's going to be a pretty heavy episode. Be prepared.
Be prepared.
Be prepared.
Oh my God.
You know that we couldn't do an episode without singing. Welcome to the Hafu It.
Oh my God, you're welcome.
We're going to go into records that you can find through the government, the Nikkei Center Archive, Ancestry, the Ottawa Reference Library, the recently public archives from Landscapes of Injustice, Finding Your Family's Koseki, Being Nosy, asking questions on Facebook, and the Japan Foundation archive as well.
Hell yeah.
So make sure you stay tuned for next week's episode when we are going through all of that. Make sure you're prepared. Bring some popcorn. It's going to be an emotional one.
Bring some tissues.
We've got a bit of a surprise for you next week, so you definitely don't want to miss it. And for those of you who are only listening to this episode, it might be more beneficial for you to watch the next episode on YouTube if you can. There's going to be a lot more
more show and tell.
A little more of like a show and tell situation. But otherwise, we will do our best to make sure that you understand what's going on just through audio. As always. Thank you guys again for tuning in to
episode
first episode of our VJLS, our long-awaited VJLS four-part series in honor of the of Asian History Month through the ExplorASIAN Festival participation. We've got 3 more episodes, and then the Hafu It is done for a couple months.
Just a couple months.
We're not done forever. We're just done season 1. We're going to take a much-needed break. So these are really special episodes to us. We will talk to you guys next week.
See you next week.
Or in about an hour for us.
Oh my God. Bye.
Bye.